Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet Lucas Mack and actually Christopher Worth, the podcast host of No Quit Living, introduced us. And he was like, "You have got to meet Lucas." And I was like, yeah, I'm traveling and all this kind of stuff. And it was only recently that Lucas and I actually got on the phone and had a conversation. I was like, oh my goodness, why did we not have this conversation sooner? So thank you, Chris, for making the recommendation, and Lucas being patient that we're actually here having this conversation. We're excited to have you on the Leaders of Transformation.
I'm honored to be on. And yes, thank you, Chris. He's a master connector, and I really appreciate the connection with you.
Yeah. Actually, I consider myself a great connector, but I totally, as I said, this one kind of took a little longer to make happen, but here we are. And I'm also really excited that the listeners, and viewers are here because you're the reason why we do this podcast. Lucas and I can have a really great conversation, and we have already, but to record them and share them with you allows you to be inspired by his story, and also be inspired to be the leader of transformation that you're capable of being. Because I do believe, and I know, Lucas, you believe this as well, we talked about it, is that every single person has value, has a message to share with the world. And so we want to encourage you to get your message out there, develop your message, and then get it out there in such a way that it impacts lives, literally changes the world. So we're excited that you're here. Afterwards, we'd love to hear your comments. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com. You can find us on social media, of course, and we'd love to hear your stories. All right, so let's dive in. Lucas, I'll give you a little bit of a short synopsis on it. He is a speaker, a very short synopsis. He is a speaker, consultant, and host of the Golden Rule Revolution podcast, and as well the Vulnerable Hero podcast. In fact, we're also going to be doing it reversed, where I'm going to be on his show. So that'll be really cool. We'll continue the conversation there. But he has a powerful story, which I am not even going to touch. It's much better for him just to share it, and to share why he's doing what he's doing. So Lucas, tell us more about yourself, what you're doing, and lead us up to today.
Well, I have had quite a journey, quite a story. Professionally, I started as a TV reporter, and I'm a journalist by trade. So I was on air in different TV markets across the country. My wife and I were both in TV. And then from television at the ABC affiliate here in Seattle, I had this idea of I could create a branding agency, a marketing company to help companies tell their story. And I started a branding agency that was very successful. We ended up with 12 full-time employees, and it was a small little boutique agency that afforded my wife and I to have 3 children and supported the family. Yet 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I started having flashbacks, and I had these employees, and there was a lot of turmoil going on, but I started having flashbacks of my childhood. And up until 20 years old, I attempted suicide when I was 20. I tried to kill myself. And after that moment, see, on the outside, I looked like I had everything together. Articulate, hustler, work hard, built company, have a family, everything looked good. But on the inside, I literally was dying. And when I was 20 and I attempted suicide, past that moment, I never gave a thought back prior to 20 years old. And when I would talk to friends and buddies that I would get together with, it became kind of a joke because I started thinking, I don't really have any first person memories of my childhood. Everything's in third person, especially the times where I was severely beat. And I grew up in a really abusive home, and yet on the outside, everyone thought we had the perfect family. In fact, if we didn't smile immediately when we left the door, it was going to be worse. And so I learned to live this duality, but also fractured my insides. I was scared and I put on the bravado. I was confused, and so I sought truth. I was, I just, fear and confusion are 2 words that I summarize my childhood. And so I hustled and grinded and literally became a workaholic. I bootstrapped this company. I mean, from $10,000, all of a sudden taking care of all these employees and family, and very successful. And I started keynote speaking around the country. And it was one night I started having these flashbacks, and it was terrible. It was going back into the first person, remembering, reliving all the abuse. And it sent me on this journey. I went into therapy that week, which I used to have a stigma around. I gave a TED talk. It came out in May, and I talk about in the TED talk, I used to have a stigma around therapy, like therapists are for those people, or, tough guys don't go to therapy. And I went, and thank goodness that my mother-in-law's a therapist. And so I had learned they're not, they're not weirdos. They're not going to do anything. I mean, they're sweet people that want to help for the most part, in my experience. So I went to this therapist, and it was really beautiful because he was a male therapist, and I had not felt safe around men my whole life. And so that began a really beautiful process for me to heal, being in the presence of a man, feeling safe enough. This man created a safe space. And I went to therapy every single week, sometimes twice a week, for 2 years straight.
Wow.
And I went on this journey to understand, why do people hurt people? And keep in mind, in this time, my branding company, we didn't just do external marketing. We did internal communication, because I wanted to help people. And I thought, how business owners or leaders or executives treat their employees could literally change a family dynamic. You could crush a child tonight, the way you talk to your employee, because the employee goes home and maybe doesn't go to dinner, or doesn't have family dinner, or does and yells at the kid or beats the kid kicks the neighbor dog bites the kid down the street, the kid down the street goes to school, yells at the teacher, I mean, the ripple effect is unending. So I thought, if I could just fix or heal people or help people or save people through the means of business, all the while I was really hurting. And so when I went on this journey of healing and understanding that hurt people, but healthy people heal people, and I was hurt, and I had caused a lot of hurt. I caused a lot of hurt in my marriage. I had caused a lot of hurt even with the employees in the company I had. I was a hurt person, but on the outside, it looked great. On the outside, I'm winning national awards. On the outside, everything looked like the facade. And so being free to talk about, even though it was really hard for the first 2 years specifically, I went to this emotional intelligence training down in San Diego where you're at. And it was the very first time where I felt safe enough. I felt unconditional love by people, where I didn't feel judged, to talk about the struggles I had experienced, and sharing all these deep, painful, ugly, scary moments and memories in my life. When I got them out of me, it was like, I had lived underwater my whole life. And for the first time ever, I had oxygen. And once I realized, whoa, this is what oxygen's like. This is what air is like. This is incredible. It has set me on this path of being the permission for other people to feel safe enough to share their truth. And so this has been my story. I realized at this training that the reason truth does make us free. I do believe if we share the burden, if we get the stuff we've been carrying for so long out of us, we feel free. And yet the reason we don't share the truth is because people shame us, and we feel guilt and shame from others and judgment from others. So where love is present, truth will come forth, resulting in our personal freedom. So when we create that loving environment or safe environment, and as executives, now that I'm a management consultant, consulting at Microsoft headquarters for a change management operation in T-Mobile, I'm trying to, and really trying is the right narrative, because sometimes people are like, what are you talking about? But explaining that how you communicate, how you treat your people without judgment. If they feel scared to bring a mistake, the ripple effect will continue. I mean, that mistake will go and affect customers and customers' opinions and people's word of mouth, or even if it's internal on the political side of them wanting to grow their careers within the organization. But if you create a safe space for people without judgment and let them bring forth their truth, not only are they going to be free, you're going to build a relationship, but you will be more free to go where you want to go. And I've learned all this in the past few years. And so, yeah, I could keep going about my story. It's been beautiful. I'm on a mission now to see hurt people become healed and healed people heal other people. And yeah, that's that's how I guess we start this podcast interview.
Well, thank you for sharing. And, it takes a lot of courage. And I know that you talk about, vulnerability a lot, to be able to even articulate it, to go back there and to relive it such that you can articulate it. I know there's a lot of people that just don't even have words. They don't know how to describe it. And,
Yeah.
At the same time, it's describing it in such a way to start off with that pain, but the purpose isn't to relive it over and over. What I love about
Right.
what you're talking about is like you relived it, and then it's like, okay, I want to relive it to get it. You described getting it out of me. I want to get it
Yes.
out of me so that I
Yes.
don't continue to carry it around.
Yes.
Where I think a lot of people are stuck in the victim mode of this is what happened to me, and therefore this is what my life is going to be is like,
Yeah.
and will continue to be like. And so they're holding on to it. I've had clients like that. I mean, I coach business owners, right? But business owners are real people, and they have real issues and
Yeah.
things that come up. And so those invariably, people say to me, are you a business coach or a life coach? Yes, in a way, right?
No, totally.
Because
Exactly.
it's like, it's all coming up, right?
Right.
I
Right.
can talk to a high performer and they go, oh, by the way, this is what, because I hear the subconscious beliefs, the limiting beliefs
Yeah.
that are showing up. And so I love what you share there. Now, you're a management consultant, you go into companies and teach this. I also know that, like you said, I have a mission. I'm on a mission to
Yeah.
share this. So what's your platform? You do that through speaking and so forth, but what's your platform? Who are you specifically looking to reach out to?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's been this evolving pattern where I've had my branding agency, Fourth Avenue Media, and I've shifted from that to management consulting. And now I've shifted from that, realizing though the impact is something greater. And I lead men's retreats. And I created this program. It's a 90-day, 2 retreats, 90 days apart, defining healing themselves, healing the men, understanding what healing is, but also what legacy is, and defining legacy as a husband first, then father, health in mind, body, soul in this order, career always fourth, and pushing it forth and keeping it forth. And then friendships, 5 is the 5th one. And defining legacy in that order, the impact that we have in that. And and guys aren't married. It's, are you worthy? We talk about, are you worthy of being loved by another? It's not about, oh, I don't have someone to love yet. It's how much are you working on yourself to be worthy of someone's love? And then if they're not fathers, it's who are you impacting the next generation? We're all making a ripple effect in the next generation, either positive or negative, and being intentional and making a positive ripple effect to the next generation. If we're not fathers, and for those that are fathers, I talked about learning your children, that when we as parents, if we say, well, this is what I did, and we talk about I statements, what it does to children is it invalidates their own path and says, oh, I must be like them. And what are they? As opposed to the parent saying, what do you want? What is your purpose? And let me steward your life well for your purpose. So I talk about learning your children and interviewing them and knowing them and stewarding them. And then health, mind, body, soul is crucial. And then career, I love keeping forth, because that's where it triggers a lot of men. Is like, and this is, you're asking, and I know you work with a lot of men, the business world historically has been an extension of relationship. So that's how the baby boomers like built the manufacturing industry to what it is today. It's based on relationship, and I know I'm the old handshake and I trust them, and this is how we've done business for years. But 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every single day, and there are 70 million baby boomers as a generation. And at one time, it was the largest American generation. As they retire and jump out of the workforce, the generation that followed them were the Gen Xers, and there were only 50 million Gen Xers. So there's already a delta of 20 million that cannot even fill, nor will they fill, all the leadership spots of the boomers. Then you have 90 million millennials, like a tidal wave crashing the soon to be fully in leadership. And what I'm sharing with boomers and then also with millennials, and not to bifurcate generations, but just our job is to steward relationships. And the business community right now has become all about data, spreadsheets, and really an aversion to anything human, because of a lot of hurt people cause a lot of hurt things to happen. Totally valid. The HR industry is important to protect hurt people from hurting people. But if we transform our view of it and say, wow, yes, the relationship is what built this company. Relationship will be what continues to take this company forward, and proactively be a healthy human and set that culture. That's what everyone wants. Everyone craves to work in a place where they're known, where they're heard, where they feel safe, where they can grow, like all the basic human needs. And that's what we all crave. And so helping men understand that, but it's evolved into, I'm launching a nonprofit in August. We're launching Vulnerable Heroes, and it is creating safe spaces for men and their families to heal. And I want to say from trauma, although most men are like, oh, I don't want to deal with trauma. So I just say creating safe spaces for men and their families to heal. And I really believe that men are the origin of pain, even though there are abusive women. If you go up the lineage high enough, a man was the origin of that pain. And this is not a beating up of men. It's that men get to heal as well. Men get to have a safe space, but the minute they feel judged, the minute they feel condemned, the minute they feel shamed or guilted or a finger pointed at them, the continuation of what's always continued will happen. Yeah. Wall up, smile, tough guy, everything's good. I'll put all my energy into work because there's no human, it's not as messy. I can control it.
Yeah.
But Vulnerable Heroes, the vision is to have, like Ronald McDonald House has a center in every major city where there's a children's hospital. We will have centers in every major city that employ therapists full-time. There will be programs for men and their families to come heal and have live events and men's retreats. And because I really believe the time for healing, it's not a religious movement. It's not a social movement. It's a healing movement. And people get to heal from the trauma and no longer run from it. And I will say the bulls in Spain, these massive animals that can kill people with one fling of their neck in impaling people, have rings in their nose. And it doesn't matter how strong they are. If you put your finger in that nose, you can bring that bull to its knees. And there are men in our society that are incredibly strong, that can create a lot of impact, and they're fun to watch. But because they're not willing to face the fear and go back to those places that original trauma happened, it's like fear keeps a finger in that ring, and they're just continually held back from the life they really want to live. And so that was the case for me, and I'm seeing it for the case of others as well.
Wow, what a visual. When you talk about that ring, I could see that, and you could see the bulls, big guys, strong, mighty, and being taken down unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And you bring up a good point. Men don't really want to call it trauma. They don't want to, because it's this whole thing. Real men don't cry.
Right.
My brother, so my parents both passed away, and it was hard on both of us, my brother and I both, but it hit us differently. And for my brother, it really impacted him. And recently my uncle passed, And I remember having this conversation with my brother when he told me, as he had heard, he got the call, and he was emotional. And I said to him, I said, cry it out, like
Yeah.
big, ugly, messy cry. And he
Yes.
kind of went, yeah, yeah, okay, whatever, but you got to do that because you got to get it out of your system. And,
Yes.
and where I was able to heal from the loss, and I was very close to both of my parents, and actually was closer with my uncle even,
Mm.
but because I had processed through those traumas and other traumas that I've had in my life, I just dealt with it differently, and I had a lot more capacity. I talk a lot lately about, I'm talking a lot about capacity, is being able to have that emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical capacity to be able to have the best version of you show up.
Yes.
It's like we can have all the opportunity in the world. You can have great business opportunities, networking, connecting opportunities, have a lot of talent, and even be confident in your ability to do those things. But if you don't have the capacity,
Right.
right, or you've got that, like you said, the nose ring or something
Yeah.
that to take you down, doesn't matter how big you are, doesn't
Right.
matter how good you are. And so, yeah, really, really important. And I love that you're actually focusing on men. There's a lot of talk right now about women
Mm-hmm.
needing to heal and to be able to be heard and have their voice heard. At the same time, there's a lot of men, you bring up a good point, a lot of hurt actually originates with men. And so
Yeah.
if you can help men heal, that
I'll
will go a
help the
long way
women
to
heal.
also helping women
Yes.
as
Yes.
well,
Yes.
because yeah, that's
I mean,
very,
I
very,
want everyone to heal. I want women to heal.
yes,
I want abusers to have no more power. I want the same
yes,
thing as the Me Too movement. However, no woman has started a major global war. No one there. It's not like we have Sally Patton and Jane MacArthur as like these
yeah,
great World War II generals. It's not a knock on men. It's just that men in the masculine energy
yes,
take. And so the code word vulnerable hero is really a code word for having the feminine and masculine energy in balance. And that has nothing to do with gender. We've skewed this narrative of gender, a man and a woman, a male and female, with masculine and feminine energy. Feminine energy is just the ability to receive, to be vulnerable. And masculine energy is the ability to take and create and get, and so both are so necessary in the individual. However, with men, because of trauma and hurt and things that have happened to men, even just being hit with a belt or a object or a hand and told it was done in love, all of a sudden shuts down that side of a human being to receive anymore. So we protect that, but we still need love. We still crave to be affirmed and loved and to be told we're okay and we're known. But the problem is when we try to heal the feminine side through the masculine side, we continue to hurt. So men, pornography, adultery, addiction, workaholic. We were constantly
yeah,
trying to consume, and it's not changing anything. It doesn't change. And so when we can say, when all of us, but specifically men, create a space, say, look, what you really want is on the other side of vulnerability. It's not on the other side of getting more things or taking more things or your next promotion. I remember when we hit $1 million a year in revenue for the startup, bootstrapped agency. And I thought if I could just hit $1 million a year in revenue, that's like the goal. I was in this executive coaching group every month with these guys that are running like $250 million companies and stuff. And I'm like, if I just get to $1 million, I got to $1 million. I'm like, this is empty. It didn't mean anything. It actually it all corresponded around the time of the flashbacks too. It was an interesting time, but I was like, man, this is empty. I've worked for these goals that they don't mean anything. But it wasn't until I went through all this process to learn, if I open myself back up and stand in my own power and take back the power that was taken from me and use my words and speak to my memories and say, that was not okay. Anytime I was made to feel small was not okay. And it wasn't okay then. It's not okay now. So if I continue the act of making myself feel small by not opening that up, it's allowing that abuse or trauma to continue in a passive way. So for men to understand, look, the tough guy who's unwilling to deal with the emotional side is actually the weak guy.
Yes.
But the vulnerable man that is courageous enough to face the fear and look at it dead in the eyes and acknowledge it is the strong guy.
Mm.
And this is the narrative that I'm sharing with men is vulnerability is having the courage to experience love in its purest form. And love always gives to us. It never takes from us. It never hurts us. It never minimizes us. It never makes us feel confused. Love, and most of us have just never experienced real love, but we've been told it's love. So then we hate this word love. Society hates the word love. Men specifically hate the word love. Don't talk about this love stuff. Like, what is this touchy feely?
And
But
if they
then
do talk about it, what they're actually talking about is lust, not love.
Yes. And emotional manipulation and these things where they still feel stuck and confined and constricted. And it just seems like another layer that they're supposed to do over here.
Yeah.
And you're right. Lust is consuming oneself. It's not a physical act. It's a act of consuming one's own desires versus love is giving, always giving. In Hebrew, it's ahava, which means to give. So love always gives.
Yes.
So helping I'm having these conversations with all sorts of very, what the world would consider high, powerful, high stakes people and people that are in the process, the struggle for many years. And it's beautiful to say, your freedom is on the other side of vulnerability. Do you want to be free? Yeah, then let's go through this process.
So what's that? I know that process, it's not something that you can do it on your own, but it's better to do it with someone. So
Yes.
I'm not suggesting you prescribe something here that people can go off, because there is something about, when you do it with someone, you're actually in community, you're in relationship. Like you talked about, having that person where it could create a safe place and start to reframe it, and also walk with you through it. So you're not walking through it alone.
Right.
Help you move and prevent you from looping, like I was referring to earlier. But that being said, what if somebody's listening to this and they're saying, wow, you know what, this is really touching a part of me, which I didn't want to deal with, or I didn't know was even there. Because you bring up a good point. Oftentimes, if you don't remember your childhood, there's a reason for it.
Yes.
And so they go, I don't know. My childhood was, I don't know. I don't know much about it. I don't remember much about it. If you don't remember much about it, then you actually may want to explore it even further, because even more so, because there's something you don't want to see.
Yes.
So oftentimes that's what happens. So what would they do right now? Like if they were to want to start that journey of awareness?
Well, my personal flavor in life is I usually don't like when people say these 3 steps or, these 5 steps.
Yeah.
However, in my TED Talk, what I talk about is 3 vulnerable truths that I found, that I went through, that they simplify, I think, this process and make it easy to remember. And the first vulnerable truth is we must face the pain. And the interesting thing about pain, like pain is a synonym for darkness, I say, and is a synonym for fear. So pain, they can all be in that. They're all different, but they're all nuanced the same. And darkness will fill the void where there is not light. That's simply what darkness is. It's not a counterforce to light. So in the smallest cracks of wherever we are, there's darkness, because darkness just filled the void where light cannot get to. Fear fills the void where love has not yet gotten to. It is not a counterforce to love. So facing the pain is the very first truth that one must acknowledge, that whatever triggers that gut flinch response, like that visceral response, that tells you it's real. I'm not saying monkeys are flying out or like that doesn't trigger anything because it's not real. But when I say face the pain, all of a sudden that triggered response in someone's like, oh, look at it. Look at every door that you have kept shut internally inside you and kick them open if you have to, or gently open them. Whatever you want to do, those doors must open. Light must go into these places. And you must look, for me, my process, to not be preachy, but to say what I went through. I looked at the most painful moments of my life and the most horrific, terrifying moments of the abuse. And in my mind, I turned around. Now, I was with a group of people I felt safe enough. But in my mind, I turned around in my memory, which was not real, but I'm redefining it. And I turned around and I looked the abuser straight in his eyes and said, don't you touch, I let it rip. Like, don't put a, blankety blank hand on me. Don't touch me. Don't ever come near me again. That was the first massive moment where I gave power back to that little boy that didn't have a voice. And I created a voice for him now in this present moment. And so the first part was facing the pain, facing all the most painful moments and really spending time not skirting it. Because at the minute I wanted to do what I've always done, which was run from it or move around it, I can't heal that. I have to go. I heard the saying, the only way out is through. So going back through it and speaking to it, that would be the first step. And I am a realist. I am a literalist. I'm not a woo-woo person. I'm a big dude. I'm 6'4", 230. I have business. I know, I get, if someone's listening, be like, oh, what's this talking? I got it. And yet you still have to live with you and I still get to live with me. And the question is, do we want to live free? So we got to face the pain. The second truth that I found is got to speak the pain. Like you were talking about your brother, become a snot river if you have to. Have no more fear of what will people think of me. That fear is limiting you in all areas of your life. Not just that area where you can emote, but speak to the pain, put words to every single thing. And that for me, I was cussing out a storm, yelling, getting all the rage out of my body and crying. I mean, it was I can't remember the last time I cried till I went through this process and the flashbacks and all these things. I mean, I was crying convulsively, like a geyser, getting stuff out. Cause it was the deeper I went in this stuff, the more I could feel it down in my gut. It was healing something so deep into the very core of me. And I remember saying one thing, one final thing that I had never shared out loud to anyone. And when I got that out, when I spoke the pain in that was really the moment where I felt like, and it was ugly. And I sound like I go around talking like what I uttered, and I'm not trying to be, mystique, but once I said that, and I wasn't judged, well, what does that mean about me? Just to say, the rage, get it out. I felt free, and I didn't have the rage anymore. It was I'd carried all this stuff bottled up for so long, and and then when I got it out, it was gone.
Yeah.
And then the third truth that I found is we get to release the pain. So once we go through that process, this is what I help men understand. I ask the men in the retreats, when was the very first day you put your mask on? And I want you to go back and remember, when did you put your mask on? For me, the very first day I put my mask on and it never came off again is not only did I experience my home life where this was happening, but I was bullied. I don't want to speak for my brother, but he was bullied as well. We were bullied. So we just drew this, we were scared kids that were just drawing these bullies to us. And when I was in 7th grade, this bully wanted to fight me, and I was scared, and I was bigger than him, but I was this little nothing inside this big body. And he pushed me, it was in front of the whole school, pushed me on this asphalt, and I slipped right away. I never even got a chance to resist. I just slipped on wet asphalt. And that was the moment my mask went on and it never came off again. And because I didn't cry, I probably smiled because I've always been a jokester after that, a class clown after that, divert with humor after that. Everything looks good. And I remember going through this process for myself, just in my own thinking. I was like, well, what does that mask look like? And I'm like, okay, that mask looked like Iron Man's mask. And it was chiseled jaw. Like, you would never see me ever again give you any, you can't hurt me anymore. But, and the weird thing is, people liked my mask. And this is what I talk to men about. People love your mask. That's how you've gotten to where you are today. But the mask was created to protect the innocent boy or girl or innocent child that we were. And the question is, do you still need that mask? Is that mask serving? It served you then. And I am not invalidating. There's a lot of people that, like, there's books of like kill the ego and all this stuff. No, the ego is a gift to protect that innocence. But the question is, how much more do we need the ego? And I think ego is equal to the trauma. I have a huge ego, massive, massive ego. I have a massive ego. And I know that that ego was equal to the trauma that I went through, and it doesn't serve me anymore. And so when I help men understand that that little boy is safe enough to come back in you, and you can be healed, and you can be free, you can be fun, you can joke, you can laugh, you can listen. No one's going to judge you anymore because you have protected yourself. This is what I want everyone to understand. And we can heal when we face the pain, speak the pain, and then release the pain and stay in that place of vulnerability, which is truly our power.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, wow.
Man, I'm getting fired up. I never realized, but
there's so much here to talk about. And you know what? I know we're going to do right after this, we're going to flip so I won't share a lot here, but what you said resonated so much. And thank you for sharing, Lucas. And I'm really excited about, what you're doing, and specifically going after these men. And you know what? I think God doesn't waste any experience. He certainly doesn't waste the painful experiences. And I think that he can turn anything for good. And so for you, I just think it's really cool that you're the 6'4" big dude that's talking about this, because there's the alpha males. And yes, I've had a lot of alpha male clients that are strong and big, and they've got that mask on. They got that armor, full body armor on, where I'm ready to play.
Right.
And you're not going to get me. But to have somebody like you that can speak to that, you've had success in business, you've played that game and won. And here's what you're encouraging them to do, to walk through something that you've walked through. So very powerful. So people can find out more, lucasmack.com. That's MACK. We'll make sure that's in the show notes. You also have a book to talk about that, and then they can download a first chapter of the book.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a book. It's titled "Everyone Has a Plan Until They Get Punched in the Face." I wrote it previous to the flashbacks. I wrote it in that mask days, but there's some really beautiful truths in that book to help people define what they believe in and why, and know their own story and not be swayed by others' opinions. And so if you go to the website under my book, you can download free chapter, the introduction and chapter 1, which are really, if you read nothing else, I would want people just to take that away. And then I have a TED Talk. You can Google Lucas Mack TED Talk, and you'll find the talk. And I just encourage everyone to, if you don't go even to my website, watch the TED Talk, and I hope it just blesses you, and know that you're not alone. I am walking with you. I am not standing up on a mountaintop talking down to anyone. I'm saying I'm walking in the trenches with you. I understand it, and we can go. It's go time.
I love that. We'll also make sure there's a link in the show notes to the TED Talk, also to your Golden Rule Revolution podcast and the Vulnerable Hero podcast. We'll make sure that's in there as well, so anyone can can access that. Lucas, thank you so very much. You are a leader of transformation, and you're out there, transforming the world. And I'm just so grateful for you. I always believe that leaders of transformation take action. So if you're listening to this and this has resonated in any way or form, maybe you know somebody that has gone through an experience like this that you love dearly and you would love to see them free, then, share it with them. Maybe it's you and it's time for you to face the pain. Do something, even if it's reaching out to Lucas, watching that TED Talk, learning more about how he does it. Somehow, some way, take action on what you've heard today, because that's where transformation actually happens. We'd love to hear your stories. You can find us on leadersoftransformation.com, social media. If you like this episode, please leave us a rating and review. It does help us to get a greater reach. We have listeners in over 120 countries, and we want to get this message out that healed people heal people. And we want to get this message out to more people, so you can help us to do that. Thank you so much for being here, Lucas. Thank you for being here. And we'll look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of Leads of Transformation real soon.